Hello, everyone, and once again, this is Curtis Walker from GoHustlerGo.com, and today we're going to be talking about hunting for your best self, reshaping your identity for success. So, once again, I'm Curtis Walker. I've started GoHustlerGo.com as a website where I talk about utilizing my skill and background in the area of online marketing, where I'm coaching and giving information, tools, tips, and techniques on how to get into online marketing. But as I started along that journey, I had to actually take a good look at myself and look at my limitations when it came to how I thought about who I am and how I showed up in the space of online marketing. So I had to do a deep dive and then learn how to come up with the right tools and practical applications on how I had to alter my identity as far as showing up in the marketplace. Now, when I say alter my identity, I'm not saying I stole somebody else's identity. I'm coming up with somebody else's stuff. But I had to actually learn how to cling to the identity that fits within this space that belongs to me, that I work on each and every day. So as we go through this particular podcast, that is what we're going to be getting into. That's what we're going to be talking about. But before we get deeper into it, let me ask you this question, and that is, who are you truly? Who are you truly? Now, as we step forward and move through this, I wanted to take a brief step back and look at history for a moment. And I wanted to share a little bit with you about who I am, driven and based off of who my parents were. Now, my parents, I have 5 sisters and a brother, and I'm the youngest of all my siblings, but of all my siblings, me and my youngest sister were the only 2 that were born in the state of Michigan. But all my other siblings and my parents were all born in the state of Alabama. Now, in the late 50s, my family moved up to Michigan. Now, when it came to the environment of Alabama, my parents came from a region where they practiced sharecropping, even though that kind of has fallen by the wayside as of today. And some of you who I'm talking to about this right now may consider this a foreign concept, depending on what generational gap that you fall into. But growing up, I understood the concept of what it meant to sharecrop. So my parents moved north to Michigan. My dad, he worked in the automotive industry, and my mom, she worked doing a variety of cooking jobs and domestic work. And she worked as a nanny for a lot of people, and I am blessed to have the parents that I have today, because they taught me the value and the importance of hard work. But this story we're talking today is about identity. So as I'm talking about identity, it didn't really click with me while I was a young person until I actually got older and I had the opportunity to go back to Alabama and look at the place where my mom and dad were before they made the migration to Michigan. And when I looked at the location of the place and the size of the place, considering the number of siblings I had, and it's like my jaw just dropped, because the conditions that they were forced to live up under, if I would have been born in that and raised in that environment, it would have stunted my growth. It would have dramatically limited the identity that I could have had for myself versus the environment I grew up when I grew up in the metropolitan Detroit area. And it would have limited the beliefs I had. So I give praise to God for, one, the parents that I had and their knowledge and wherewithal to take the risk to move their family to Michigan, to the north, so that we can experience opportunities beyond what Alabama had to offer. Now, I'm not knocking Alabama. I'm more so just really talking about the importance of when it comes to identity and getting an identity shift. Sometimes you need to change your physical environment in order for it to change the outcome. You also not only need to change physical environments, you may need to change people that are around you so that you can enhance your identity. You also have to change your intentionality in order to set the pace, set the tone for how you show up in life or show up in your various roles that you have to play, whether it's in your family, whether it's in your work, in your community. But you have to set an intentionality. And the other thing is, as far as for identity, I'm going to say skill sets. I was blessed by being in the environment that I grew up in that drove me to the position to say it was okay for me to join the U.S. Marine Corps. Now, as far as for when I got in, it's been over 30 years since I've actually, close to 30 years since I've been out. And a lot of the stuff still sticks with me. And so it was one of the main things that really was the catalyst that shaped my drive and my identity for how I show up in the world and in the workplace, and even show up for my family, friends, or whatever else I have to do in life. But there's a strong intentionality that shows up there. But I know that when it comes to many of us, trying to make an identity shift can be scary, and it might be questionable because of our shadow self. Now, some of you are saying, what is a shadow self? Well, the shadow self, and if you can imagine yourself with light shining on you in your face, well, shining anywhere upon you, and you look around and you see your shadow. The shadow self concept is that as you are trying to make an identity shift or a change, the shadow is actually something that is clinging to you and trying to pull you back into your former identity, the identity that you're trying to break from. Because we as creatures of comfort, we will go back to something that we know, even if the thing that we know is uncomfortable. So as you try to shift your identity, I want you to be completely aware there's a shadow self that exists. I've even heard it used in the form of like how a thermostat works, where if you actually set a thermostat at 60 degrees, the thermostat will actually register that your house or whatever might be at 55 degrees, and therefore your furnace kicks on and elevates the temperature to 60, 61, 62. But at a certain point, it has a governor where it turns itself off. And then after a while, the temperature will start to drop again, depending on what season you're in. And it may drop, 60, 59, 58 before the sensor kicks in and says it's time to elevate it again. Well, we will operate when it comes to identity shifts, where we will sometimes not be comfortable with the new lifestyle that's presented with the new identity. And therefore we start to turn our own personal thermostat down or back down, instead of elevating into the identity that we're trying to shape for ourselves. So I want you to be aware of that as you're thinking about your identity. But I do know that when it comes to life is presented with a lot of challenges, obstacles, and problems. And we can't get away from it, but we can change how we look at it, and we can change how we show up. One of the best ways you could change how you show up is changing how you perceive who you are to a particular problem, task, or challenge. Now, if you perceive yourself as doubtful that you can figure it out, well, then you will limit yourself before you even start. So if you can actually learn to shift your identity as though you are the person that was sent there for a purpose, with the plan and with the means to solve a problem. And even if you don't have the answers, if you show up with your right identity, you can then reach and grasp for the right tools and resources necessary for you to bring a solution to any given problem that's out there in the world that you're facing or other people are facing. I know that I've had to use that methodology when I show up in life for things that I've done in the corporate world and things that were outside of my skill sets or my vision or view. I've learned how to actually tap into other people's resources, and I even had to do what I call identity anchoring. So, like, let's say when it comes to, I use basketball as a good example. So, I know that when it comes to playing it as a kid, it was, when I was younger, it was natural for certain moves and things that I could do as far as dribbling and shooting, because everybody was doing in our neighborhood was doing it. We all had our various shots and skill sets at it, but there were certain things that came natural. But in order for me to progress to a new level, especially when I met new challenges on the ball court, I had to learn how to anchor my identity to someone else. So I always had those go-to favorites as I was growing up. I had the Michael Jordans. I had the Isaiah Thomas back when I was a kid growing up. Yeah, I had Vinnie Johnson. I had Dr. J, but I had to anchor myself to their identity as I dribbled up and down the court and connected with them as they played. I had to push myself to play as they played so that I can increase my ability to perform. And that helped me also to increase my confidence. So I'm saying this to you as you're listening to it. You're thinking about this as I'm bringing it out to you. What kind of identity can I have? What are the possibilities out there for me? What do I really think about myself? And if I could do or be anything in this world, what would it be? And I know one of the other challenges that I had to face is the imposter syndrome. And when it comes to, I'm going to say, showing up in this world and showing up in your space of life, we get concerned about, I'm like somebody else, or I'm copying somebody else, or we're getting concerned about what other people are saying about the identity that we're trying to present or represent. Well, I just wanted to tell you, in the world of almost 8 billion people out there, there is so much opportunity out there for you to be practically anything you want to be. You have the freedom to test, to try, and honestly, there's nothing new out of the sun, and we all curate off of each other. But there is still something special and unique about you. There might be some things you might want to emulate because certain skill sets, techniques, and things that people do that they show up in the world is admirable. You so then want to imitate them, for one, to kind of support how you identify with them, and you want to actually experience some of the, I'm going to say, support accolades that they've been experiencing that goes along with their identity. So you may want to imitate. Well, you can't exactly imitate, and there's no slight to you because you can't fully imitate, because that person that you're imitating can only be them, and you can only be you. And there's something inside of you that is your special flavor, your special flame, and your special sauce that you can put on to the person that you're trying to emulate. So here's my challenge for you today. Is there a piece of life or area in life where you want to show up that you think you don't have the right identity and the right credentials to show up? And is there someone out there you can identity anchor to so that you can learn positive skill traits, techniques, or tools necessary so that you can show up in the marketplace to make you a valid concern or a valid person for the marketplace to look at? And on top of that, is there something special and unique about you that you can add to that identity so that you can really blow that identity, the new identity shift, out of the water? I want you to experiment with this. I want you to play with this. But now let's take it to the next level. I want to challenge each and every last one of you to get over to GoHustlerGo.com. I want to push you to read some of the blogs, read some of the thoughts and comments and things that are placed there. But beyond that, I want you to connect through our newsletter. Sign up for the newsletter today. Now, I drop the newsletter 3 times a week. That's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I want you to get out there and read it. But not only read it as though you just got something free, but I want you to read it as though you made a tremendous investment in it. Because we all know that if you make an investment into something, you are committed to its growth. You have demands on it, and I want you to put demands on what you are experiencing from me. Matter of fact, I challenge you to do this from anybody's content that you consume. You are listening to various podcasts, blogs, or whatever else. I want you to treat it as though you paid for it, so that when you pay for it, you are now committed to taking better, clear, and concise action on it. So that way you can get so much more out of this experience. So to conclude, I'm Curtis Walker. This is GoHustlerGo.com. Get over to the website, check out the blog, sign up for the newsletter, and I look forward to connecting with you in the next podcast. Have yourself an awesome day.